Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for more Champions League final build-up. That massive game on Saturday. Another great guest returning to the channel in Football London's Chelsea reporter Adam Newson. The last time I spoke to Adam was around the European Super League, and we had a deep conversation about that where so many things could have happened, very much related to European football. But of course, it's great to have Adam back. We cover the conclusion to the Premier League season. Of course, Adam reporting on Chelsea being inside the ground with supporters returning at Stamford Bridge, so we discussed the excitement around that, and then go into the Champions League final, the tactics, looking at some players, why it's so important for some of the younger players within this squad, and of course Tuchel versus Pep. Adam is a great guy, had a great conversation with him once again. Hope you guys enjoy. Before we get into the video, once again shouting out the giveaway for the Son of Chelsea and Lucid shirt that you guys are getting involved with in the comments. If you want to win the shirt, as you can see on screen now, the information of how to enter. We will be announcing the winner next week following the Champions League final. Subscribe, like and comment on this video. Those are the rules. You can comment up to 5 times on one video to get your entries in. Your comment of course can be on the topic, but also if you want to win this shirt. And as well, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Those are the rules if you want to enter and be with a chance to win the Son of Chelsea and Lucid FC shirt. So best of luck entering the competition, but let's get to my discussion with Adam right now. So Adam, thank you once again for joining me today. The last time we spoke, I think it was over a month ago, and it was obviously when we didn't know if Chelsea were going to be in the Champions League anymore, to be honest. The European Super League and all of that, I think that was the same day. I think we spoke like a couple of hours before it all collapsed. Yeah. So it's great to be speaking to you again in better circumstances where we can actually speak about football. Just your feelings on a Champions League final. I mean, I know you for Football London, you've been covering Chelsea for only a few months, and what a crazy 4 months it's been that Chelsea now find themselves in the European Cup final.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much prepared me now for anything that's going to happen covering Chelsea over the next sort of few years. No, it's been great. A lot's happened, obviously, in that sort of, I started pretty much day one, January of this year, and yeah, Frank going early, Thomas Tuchel coming in, the transformation, and this European Cup run's been great. I think the squad, in a lot of ways, several members of the squad have really matured under Thomas Tuchel and have really taken their game onto another level. Others, as I'm sure we'll come to in a bit, there's still sort of question marks over. But now, as a sort of intro to covering Chelsea, I think this has been great, and it's probably covered me for pretty much the years ahead.
This has probably been the most, I mean, if we do win the Champions League, I would say this has probably been the most Chelsea season you could find. Probably even more than the years when we win the Premier League title. I was like, what do you define as a Chelsea season? I'd probably put this one up there in terms of like under Roman especially, but even historically, in terms of the quick change around in managers, how quickly things go from like brilliant to awful, even in recent weeks, that is just Chelsea summarized. So yeah, it is crazy watching this club, and it sometimes it questions sort of your logic around football and speaking about it, because this team does make you question reality at times. So obviously we'll get into the game. I wanted to ask you about, obviously you've been covering the club and at the games, and I think the last time we spoke, we not having fans inside the ground, you've been there for the FA Cup final and also the Leicester game in the Premier League, and we had fans back inside the ground, and finally it feels like those days of lockdown ball might just be behind us now, and starting to get back to some normality. Just the experience of having fans back inside the ground, because of course you've been to so many games without them. That Leicester game, I wasn't there personally, but just watching on TV, it was incredible to feel the energy back inside that stadium.
Yeah, I mean, the FA Cup final was very different, obviously, because there were two sets of fans. But going to Stamford Bridge for that the Premier League game, I am a Chelsea fan. I've not hidden that, and I felt quite emotional. It was, it felt very special to have the fans back, and there were only 8,000, but it sounded like a full stadium, to be honest. And I think it was shown in the Chelsea performance. There was probably an energy and an intensity to Chelsea's performance that night that we haven't actually seen. Well, we didn't see at the weekend, and we probably didn't see against Arsenal and Leicester in the FA Cup final. So I think it did make a huge difference to Chelsea. And yeah, it was just a great evening to have the fans back. It was sort of like there were times where it felt like a big family reunion, like there were people catching up with people who hadn't maybe seen each other for over a year, and And the sort of pre-match rituals, people were just going back through. It was like people just getting back into their routine, and it was a great night. And hopefully, fingers crossed, Chelsea can keep that next season, the sort of energy and that the sort of the intensity, and not just from the players, from the fans as well, because that night was very, very different to, I think, a lot of games at Stamford Bridge, to be honest.
It felt very similar to the way I think was it 2,000 or 4,000 fans, I think it was 2,000, wasn't it, back in December against Leeds, how those fans very much energised a very good performance, and it feels like it definitely has had an impact, maybe to a negative effect against Aston Villa, where, of course, Villa had their own fans back inside the ground, and obviously they were making a lot of noise. I wanted to sort of talk to you just a little bit about the conclusion to the Premier League season. Chelsea got there in the end, saved by Gareth Bale. We tried our best to mess it up. If I was just to isolate down to the Premier League, I mean, I have to say I find it quite underwhelming, very underwhelming actually, based on my preseason expectations. The fact that we only gained 1 more point than last year. I mean, I think that's the most crazy stat of all, to be honest. Just your opinion, because we did... I'm going to add the Leicester FA Cup final in the fact that we lost 3 of our last 4 domestic games of the season. And just your feeling on that, because, Chelsea have been in control of top 4 for so long, and they nearly messed it up on the final day.
Yeah, I think, we've spoken about this. Thomas Tuchel did brilliantly to get Chelsea into the position they were in going into the final weeks of the season. He did take over when Chelsea were 9th in the table. They weren't as far off top 4 as people have tried to probably have you believe. I think it was about 5 points. And there was quite a really quick swing into how Chelsea jumped back up the table. At that point, it's probably, in my opinion, what happens then is on Thomas Tuchel and these players, that he'd got the train back on track. It's now for him to drive it home, essentially. And if it goes off the rails again, that's somewhat his fault. It's a bizarre situation, but I had a very strong feeling that Chelsea weren't going to deliver on Sunday. More than I am concerned about them on Saturday. I don't really doubt that Chelsea will step up against Manchester City in the Champions League, but away at Villa on the last day of the season, I don't know why. I don't know why that is, but I had a very strong feeling that I said to a couple of people, I don't think Chelsea are going to get this done today, and we're going to need help from Tottenham. Fortunately, we got that. And it kind of makes the Premier League season a success in terms of where it was, and as Tuchel has said, his objective was to finish in the top 4, and he's done that. But as you said, to gain 1 more point on last year with the investment we had in the squad is probably not great reading, and it's definitely not where Chelsea, almost certainly where Chelsea didn't, they didn't want to be in that situation. They wanted to be pushing for the title, almost certainly, if not that, then qualifying for the top 4 with weeks to spare, rather than going into the last minutes of the season hoping that Gareth Bale scores another goal for Tottenham.
I mean, it comes back to this thing of mentality for me. I think, you could isolate down the fact that Chelsea once again had a lot of opportunities to score. Maybe there's some arguments around handballs that could have been given our way from VAR. But I don't know about... I've just got tired of a lot of that stuff because I've seen similar issues. So, like, stuff that goes against you, like Traore scuffing a shot into the top corner. I'm like, well, if you don't finish your chances in the other end, that the unpredictability of football always allows that possibility that stuff like that is going to go against you. I just felt once again it was a case where the set of players in a game they are supposed to win don't show up and don't. I think there were so many things in that performance that were just very concerning for me going into the next Premier League season. I don't know about you, because it just felt like the management of the game was poor. Certain individual performances were way off in key positions, and even if they do win the Champions League, I think it's proof that Chelsea needs serious investment in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the Champions League can paper over that. Perhaps we've had that in the past, actually. That Antonio Conte season when we won the Premier League, Chelsea had a brilliant season and then didn't really build on it. They kind of went into the next season and then it all collapsed very, very quickly. And I think there are big flaws in this squad. There's no hiding that. They have surfaced so often now, not just under Tuchel, but under Frank Lampard, under Maurizio Sarri. Whether it's complacency, maybe it's a touch of arrogance when it comes to these sort of run-of-the-mill Premier League games. I don't know, but it's happened too often now for it to be anything other than, a consistent problem. And yeah, Thomas Tuchel keeps saying, and he has said, Chelsea have been unlucky in games, and there is an element of that, but not to slip into cliches, but you do make your own luck in football. And if Chelsea had, killed off Villa in the first 20 minutes, and as they had chances to do, then, there's no stress about Sunday. Chelsea going to that, probably see out the game quite comfortably because, one thing we know they can do very well is defend when they have a lead. So, yeah, there are there are big question marks over several players. I mean, and this isn't just the usual suspects, there are other players that do need to be had a look at. And I don't really want to get into talking about individuals too much, but, I saw people criticising Mason Mount after the game, and it's like, well, I put on Twitter that, he's played a bunch more minutes than anybody else. So it's kind of reasonable to expect him to be a bit tired at this point of the season. But there are players in this squad who have little purple patches, and you're like, oh, okay, you get it. You understand why they're at Chelsea because you can see their quality, but it's just sustaining that and making sure you produce it week in, week out. And that's just not what we've seen from quite a few members of this squad now. And Tuchel's done brilliantly, but I think this summer he does probably have to have a hard look at this team if he does genuinely, as he says he does, want to challenge for the Premier League title next season, because there are going to have to be changes if that's going to happen.
I think that's the thing for me is that makes you'll get some people who go, oh, you're criticizing certain players after one bad performance, and it's like, unfortunately, I'm not just isolating it down to one performance. Unfortunately, I can't just have the memory of a goldfish. Like I do look back over previous seasons, and I've looked at the narrative of Chelsea over recent years, whether that's the struggle for top four, and similar players. Like it feels like at Chelsea in recent years, and maybe this comes back historically to Chelsea, but just in terms of the Premier League, we have this ability of going through really good patches of form, or at least a brief spell of encouragement, and then a really steep collapse. Like that has been under Sarri, under Kante, under Lampard, and under Tuchel as well. And similar suspects in very key positions. So I think that, that's why I think a lot of people have reacted negatively, and I think there is. I don't want to bring them up and just scapegoat them because of course they could have brilliant performances on Saturday in the Champions League final, but I do think if we want to be top four, if we just want to continue in the same place, then stick with the same players. But if as Tuchel I think wants to do and has shown, actually, I think the fact that he's been able to hide the flaws in his squad for so long, I think has been quite impressive, actually. Obviously, we got to hear from Tuchel on Monday. He's going to do another press conference, I believe, on Friday in Porto before the game. I guess the first big thing is the fitness of Edouard, Mendy, and also N'Golo Kante. He was optimistic on both. If you were to sit here right now, I mean, who would you give the better chance of playing in the game?
Right now, I'd say Mendy, just because I don't think his injury is as bad as Chelsea perhaps feared on Sunday. Tuchel did say yesterday that his pain management had sort of dropped quite a lot. So bruised ribs, I mean, are painful. I've had them myself. They are painful, but I'm sure he could have a painkiller injection, could strap them up. I do think there are ways to make sure Eddie Mendy's there. Kante, I mean, Tuchel sounds hopeful that Kante is going to be back. He said he will potentially be back on Wednesday in training, and he might just put him out there even if the medical team say don't, which I think was very much a joke on his part. But Kante's hamstrings, I mean, they've become very much a body part of interest for Chelsea fans over the last year. I don't think that Chelsea can play this final without him, which I appreciate puts a lot of stress on his, mental and his physical side of it. But even an 80% fit N'Golo Kante has to start this game and hope that he can get through it. And that's the fear, is if he isn't available, and I'm sure Chelsea will push him absolutely as hard as they can, but if he's not available, then it makes the whole complexion of the Champions League final change quite dramatically, because he's proven himself in N'Golo Kante this season, perhaps more than ever. He steps up for the very biggest games. He was absolutely incredible against Atletico. He was unbelievable against Real Madrid. The amount of ground he covered and just what he adds to this team. There is nobody else in this squad who can do what he does. And if he's not in that starting 11 come Saturday evening, I know personally my expectations will have shifted and my hopes will probably be downed a little bit. But yeah, let's hope. Fingers crossed, because yeah, he is a transformative player for this side. But it's hard because with the Euros only a couple of weeks away. I mean, he may not want to take every single risk for one game because he's got to represent his country at a European Championship. So it's going to be very tricky. But everything crossed that he is back for Saturday and in that Chelsea starting 11.
I mean, it does feel very much like the situation Chelsea found themselves in the last European final we were in against Arsenal in Baku. Obviously, I think we all felt that he wasn't going to be ready. I mean, it was, I think even on the day I remember hearing reports that he wasn't going to be in the team, and then he was in the starting 11, he played the full 90 and he was incredible, and you were like, what, did he even have an injury? Because he played that well. But then, of course, I guess that was the start of these problems. Lampard spoke about it the season after, that it had a knock-on effect. He barely had a pre-season. The injury problems throughout last year, the injury problems since then. So I guess maybe the question would be, are Chelsea risking, it's that long-term over short-term thing. Are we risking losing Kante for a large period of the season next year when we need him in the Premier League? That's going to cost us. But then it's the Champions League final, and he could single-handedly win us the game. He could, not in terms of goals, but, in terms of winning that midfield battle. So it's a massive call. I guess, the tactical battle going into this, of course, facing Pep recently and, getting 2 wins over him. 2 very different games. The FA Cup, I actually think the FA Cup semi-final is more probably a representation of what this game's going to be like than the Premier League game was. Because I guess Pep was trying to not reveal anything. He played like one midfielder in Rodri and just, played a bunch of attackers, and it kind of became a bit mental in the second half. What do you think about the game in this sense? Because to me, I can only see it going one way. I can see it being a very cautious game from Tuchel. I think Chelsea will be forced to sit back like they were in Munich, and it will be about counter-attacking opportunities.
No, I think that's spot on, to be honest. I don't see it playing out any other way. The FA Cup semi-final and the league game, I don't think Guardiola picked his strongest side for either. Obviously, Foden didn't start the FA Cup final. I'm sure he will start on Saturday. And as you said, the Premier League game, he just seemed to be trying to do everything to throw Tuchel off the scent of what he will do for this game. I suspect we won't see a recognised striker in the Man City side. I think we'll probably see De Bruyne as a false 9 or maybe Gundogan. And I think City will dominate the ball, and Chelsea are going to have to do similar to what they did in the FA Cup semi-final. They'll have to soak up a lot of pressure and then use the space out wide and the threat of Timo Werner, who I am almost certain will start this game just for that reason. In behind, Guardiola said yesterday in his first of his 2 press conferences as well, he spoke about Chelsea's system and how well Tuchel has coached them. He spoke about how wide Chelsea make the pitch with the wing backs, and then how deep they make it with the pace of Werner behind the defences. So he knows how Chelsea are going to play. I think we all didn't know how Chelsea are going to play, but Chelsea do have weapons that can hurt City. Most noticeably Timo Werner, which will be very, very interesting. And I just hope that he can discover that knack in front of goal that's eluded him for so long now, because I think he will get chances on Saturday. And I put this out on Twitter before games. If he gets one chance, he is going to have to take it. We haven't seen that really yet for quite a while. Hopefully he can find it on Saturday.
Well, it's more likely he's going to set up a goal for someone rather than scoring it, because he's done pretty well at setting up goals for Hakim Ziyech, as he did in the FA Cup semi-final. I just wonder if Chelsea's biggest help is Pep in this game, in the sense that we've seen Pep at City at times overthink things. I mean, this is a final, and Pep's record in finals is just ridiculous. It really is. Has he lost one? I think, he may have lost one final in his career, but he's won the majority of them. But we do know Pep, because of the way, a bit like Tuchel, he prepares so rigorously for these games, and he thinks out all the different scenarios. Sometimes he'll do things, like in terms of a team selection, that maybe isn't necessary. Is that something that could maybe swing it in Chelsea's favour if Pep does something radical, that a change in formation, a change in personnel that he wouldn't usually do?
I have a feeling he'll have learned from past experiences now. Obviously, for the league game, he threw out a back 3, and it worked to a degree, but then, Chelsea were able to pick holes in that, especially in the second half. So I actually think we'll see what is City's strongest team. And, as I said, I don't think there'll be a recognised striker, which some people will be surprised about maybe, but I think that's very much his plan A now. So, he didn't throw out any dramatic surprises against PSG or anything like that. He kept it pretty standard to what, he would trust as his best team. So, yes, perhaps sadly for Chelsea, I think he will. He knows what his best team is now. He knows how Chelsea will play, and he'll pick his strongest side accordingly. I don't think we'll see any dramatic surprises, and much probably to my disappointment, because when he does do that, it tends to backfire on him.
Yeah, it does. I think that maybe Tuchel has a similar problem in a different way sometimes with the recent games where he's made too many changes, or just maybe overthink things, and that's what makes it such a tactical battle. And it will be defined by fine margins, you expect, because that's how most finals are decided. Very few are dominated by one team in terms of goals, so it'd be interesting to see how it all plays out. Before the FA Cup final, you wrote I think you actually did an interview with Reece James and sort of the importance, I guess, for younger players in this squad going into this, which are, they're some of the players that are most loved by supporters. Obviously the connection and the careers they've had, especially Mason and Reece. I think the development of both of them this season, I know Mason has been player of the year, but I think Reece has been really good as well. How important do you think this is personally for them? Because it's a bit weird, because I'm sure maybe in their heads they felt, maybe I'll get to this stage at 26, 27, but as football is, it's unpredictable. The biggest game of their career has come around very early, and just how they could put their names in Chelsea history on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, these guys have been at the club since they were sort of 6-7 years old. They know what it means to be a Chelsea player better than probably anyone else in that squad, along with the other academy lads. I mean, speaking to Reece, it did strike me how different he was in an interview compared to how he is on the pitch, because he is a completely different character. He was, quite quiet, reserved, almost shy, whereas on the pitch you see him, barging into players, and he himself said he's quite angry and aggressive when he steps onto the pitch. I mean, the connection they have with Chelsea is special, and this is why so many fans love to see academy players in the team and the squad, because it does mean maybe not more, but it's a very different feeling to them to play for the club, and to achieve or potentially achieve the landmark moment in their careers at 22, 21 years old is huge. But I think it would just be such a good moment for them to build on, which I know is probably sounds a bit strange given it's a Champions League final, but these guys want to emulate, the likes of John Terry, Frank Lampard, Didier Drogba, and those guys won title after title after title. They had that mentality to win and win again, and that mentality is bred into the players at academy level. You see how many times Chelsea win the Youth Cup and the UEFA Youth League. These guys have enjoyed success all the way up through their Chelsea journey. And I guess winning something at senior level, which they haven't been able to do yet, obviously they've lost 2 FA Cup finals, and now this is another final. To win that first big trophy and it to be the Champions League as well would very much set them on that path, I think, for winning more down the line. And as a fan, it would be lovely to see Mason Mount and Reece James celebrating a Champions League victory, just because, as I said, the connection they have is very different, and the connection we as fans have to those players is almost certainly very different as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess as well, other things I felt about, with this squad is that other players that, it's probably their last opportunity, probably their only opportunity in the Champions League final. I think about a great servant like Cesar Azpilicueta, potentially, you expect will play as the captain and could lift the trophy. I think about Kovacic and Jorginho, potentially 2 players who, of course, have received a lot of criticism during their Chelsea career, but whether it's going out on a high or at least knowing that they could leave Chelsea with a Champions League winners medal and play a big part in that. I think, there's so much about the Champions League, as we discovered in 2012, that it's just so big. It wipes out so much negativity. It has so much power within it. I guess just focusing on Tuchel, I mean, I had this conversation with my dad recently, and it feels ridiculous because he's only been here 4 months. But if he was to lift the Champions League and do it for this club, given how monumental winning that trophy is, I mean, where does he rank in terms of great Chelsea man? I know it sounds very silly. He's only been here 4 months, but the Champions League is the only trophy that I think you can do this with. It's the only one that I think can just really change, your stature at a club just in a very short space of time. I mean, this would be huge, wouldn't it, for him?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how far he jumps up the list, I mean, I think you probably have to say top 5 straight off the bat. The Champions League is so all-consuming and is to be fair, it's been so well marketed that it's the be-all and end-all now for a lot of clubs. That winning it with Chelsea inside 4 months would be an incredible achievement. It would be a great moment for him, obviously, as well, having lost the final last year with PSG to come back a year later and win it. I think I'm I don't know if it's weird because, as you say, this Champions League will determine Chelsea's success this season. If they win it, it's a successful season. If they don't, everyone's looking at it going, top 4 finish on the final day. That's not great. So, yeah, exactly. So I think for these players, and you said, Aspi, Thiago Silva, probably Oli Giroud, there are guys in this squad who, as you say, this is going to be the last chance to probably win a Champions League. And we saw how much of a motivating factor that could be in 2012. So for the group and for Tuchel, it's a huge opportunity. And as I said, I don't have any real concerns that they won't turn up on Saturday. It's just whether or not Man City are that little bit better. And, on paper, the City squad and the starting 11 is better than Chelsea's. Tuchel has accepted that many times, actually, over the course of his press conferences. He's always said, City are the yardstick to which we've got to measure ourselves again. And, we can match them for 90 minutes, then we can do that. And Chelsea have proven they can do that. So it's a huge game for Tuchel, for the players, for the fans. And hopefully Chelsea can get the job done and everyone can be celebrating outside Stamford Bridge come about midnight Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously knowing the emotions of 2012, you just, you think what it could mean for the club. I think something you touched on earlier was that if we do win it, I really hope the club can use it as something to build on rather than just one amazing night. And then within a couple months, we haven't improved at all. I think that's something that the club has struggled with like winning Premier League titles and not building on it. You hope that, as you say, especially with the younger players within this squad, it could really be a springboard to improve. This is an impossible question to end on. If there was one player, and we have, this team has problems scoring goals, but if there was one player you would say you'd think could be a defining one for Chelsea in attack on Saturday, who would it be?
My heart says Mason Mount because I would love him to score the winning goal, just as I said, as we touched on there, for his connection with Chelsea, and also because he has had to put up with an awful lot of negativity that he's never deserved. My head says I actually think Timo Werner will be arguably Chelsea's most important attacker for the reasons we mentioned earlier. I mean, his pace is going to cause City problems. We know City squeeze hard up the pitch, so there is going to be space for him to exploit. It's the sort of game he likes. I mean, whether or not Guardiola does drop his defence 10 yards deeper just to stop that, I don't know. It seems unlikely. But yeah, it would be an incredible turnaround for Timo Werner to be the decisive guy in a Champions League final. And who knows, maybe that would be the impetus for next season for him to really kick on and be the forward that we all kind of expected or hoped he would be when he arrived last summer, having scored 34 odd goals for Leipzig last season.
Very much he could have a Fernando Torres moment, £50 million has just been repaid. For a lot of people, including myself, despite all the woes of Torres at Chelsea, that Barcelona goal is still such a big thing, I think, in our history. So, hopefully the same could be the case on Saturday. Thank you so much, Adam, for joining me once again. Obviously, you're covering the club, obviously, with all the news surrounding us. But obviously, as we get closer to the Champions League final, anything you want to shout out now in terms of pieces that will be going out? This will be going out on Wednesday, so still a couple of days before we get to that Champions League final. And obviously, your work continuously on Football London regarding Chelsea.
Yeah, I'm spoken to Andreas Christensen for a piece that's going to be coming out later in this week. I'm hopeful, I'm working on it actually, of trying to speak to a couple of the 2012 lads about their experiences and whatnot. Touch wood on that, and I should have a piece on N'Golo Kante's journey as well, because of just what he means to Chelsea and how important he is.
Brilliant. All of Adam's work and the links will be in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Stay tuned for more Champions League final build up, and I'll see you again.